Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 123. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Kristen Kalp. Kristen has a business that helps people discover and explore their greatest gifts and deepest truths. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm really, really excited about this because I think this is something that a lot of women entrepreneurs really struggle with. So welcome, Kristen, and I can't wait to get started.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Holly. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I've had a business now for about 6 going on 7 years, and I started out as a photographer, actually. I used the camera as a tool to connect with people, especially kids, because they're my jam, and pets because they're way more my jam than kids even. And then slowly I realized that, I do have English and education degrees, and I never stopped writing. Brand Camp has existed for 6 years, and it was never going to be monetized for the first 12 to 18 months, somewhere in there. It didn't occur to me that I could make money blogging. I was just like, well, this is what I need to do because I see people out there fucking it up. And I need, my bossy pants is like, you need to fix some shit, people. And then it slowly evolved into I am an okay teacher, but I'm a much better coach. I will call you out and be like, dude, don't do that. Please don't do that. That's not true to who you are. Mm-hmm. And just because you're taking this advice, I can sit in a room with 10 people, give one person advice, look across the room and be like, don't you take that advice. That is terrible advice for you. So being in the business of offering advice is really tricky, which is why I love coaching so much, because it's like, that will not work for you at all. That is good advice for her, but not for you. And making distinctions there is really interesting for me. So I get on the phone with people now. I call it dominatrixing because I tell you what to do in what order once we determine what it is you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I help you decide what it is you actually want to do. And typically there's sort of a B+ project that you want to work on that's like, this'll do. And then I'm the one that steers you toward it doesn't feel like that's it. It feels like there's something bigger or scarier or weirder. Mm-hmm. Or have you been having recurring dreams about whales or just weird questions? And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Yes, that's it. That's it. That's it. And then I push them. I will just shove you in the direction of the scariest thing possible. So that's what I do now. I shove people toward their fears and also their wildest, happiest, most amazing days.
I love that. Now, you say in your bio that you're allergic to the word coach, but that's what people say you do. So could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because you're the first person I've ever heard say that you're allergic to coach.
Because I'm like a teacher, but I'm also like a friend and a really not annoying cheerleader. And I feel like coaching just begs the question of where did you get certified or who did you study under? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, actually, if I had studied under someone, it would probably have taken out all the interesting bits that make me wildly inappropriate and yet really fun to work with. So I'm a little bit psychic and a little bit poet and a little bit best friend and a little bit tough love and a little bit coach. But that's way too long for an Instagram bio. And so we kind of just have to go with coach.
That's good. That's good. We've got to learn to be succinct in the online world.
Right?
Yeah,
so that's an easy word.
Okay, that makes sense. I love that. So today I want to talk with you a little bit about how to discover and explore your greatest gifts. And as we were saying before we got on the official podcast, how to let out your weird. Because I think so many people who are in the online world, you either try to model what someone else is doing because it's working for them, so you think maybe it'll work for you, or you feel like you have to tone yourself down to be more palatable to a wider audience. And of course, that's not what you need to be doing. You need to be letting out your weird and just being you. But how the heck do you start?
Yeah. So you start by being just a little bit weird. You don't have to go with your kinky, weird sex dreams that you have that you only share with your partner. You can be just a little bit like what feels unsafe to say to people that are paying attention. And it could be as simple as like, I'm going to show a picture and I didn't sweep the floor before I took this picture. How about that? To some people, that's like, oh dear God, that's scary. And then at the other end of that, you have like the word fuck 3 inches high on your website, and you have pink hair, and you're pushing. But the goal is not to shame you for not having pink hair. The goal is to push your own envelope. So you get to decide, am I playing it safe? Am I hiding? Or am I pushing my own boundaries here? And with everything that you post or say or do or offer, you want to be pushing your own boundaries. And then realize that, can I tell a story? Is there?
Of course,
yes. I'm a good storyteller and succinct. So I was in a room. I was paid to give a keynote, and I just threw the keynote out the window and decided that we would have a weird off. So I asked for 10 volunteers, and I said, I need you to come up with the weirdest thing that you think that no one else on the whole planet does or thinks or says, and then I need you to say it out loud to the crowd. And they didn't know what was going to happen. So they said the thing, and it was just really inane stuff, which to me, but to them, they were like, oh, I think that I'm so fat that no one wants to look at me, that kind of thing. And then I would say, who else thinks that? And so like inevitably half the room raises their hand, 3/4 of the room. And then it does get really weird. This guy comes up and he's like, you know, my wife and I, we only sometimes talk to each other in like meows, like meow. And I was like, oh shit, this is going to break it. This is going to ruin everything. And God bless the one soul in the room that raised their hand, put their head down and was like, yep. So no matter what your weird is, there's somebody probably in the same room that shares it, but we all just go around hiding it. Like, I'm not weird. You're not weird. No, I'm not weird. No. So just say the thing, and you don't have to go straight to the meow. You can go to the simpler, easier things. But start doing it, because I promise it makes people either really love you or really hate you. And I'm totally okay with that. I want people to go away as soon as possible when they find out that my weird is like, ew, I don't like you at all.
Okay, so the question is, how do you share this in an interesting, appropriate, and useful way in your business? So do you blog about meowing with your partner, or do you just randomly mention it in an interview? Or, I mean, how do you bring this weirdness stuff into your business?
So there's a line between, so first, listen to everything Brene Brown says, ever, for any reason. And I don't mean weird, like wounded, like my electricity is off and I'm so poor and I don't even care because I'm too busy knitting or whatever. Like, don't use any weird that's going to make us feel maternal feels and want to save you from something. And then what's like, nobody knows this about me, but it's really important to who I am. Like, if meows are really important, fucking tell the world about your meows. And if it's not really important, then you don't have to. It's just like, oh no, that's private. That's just for us. I really encourage pushing the line between public and private. It's what I do all the time. So that I'm going to give you the worst case scenario is that someone meets you and you are nothing like who you are online. To me, that's so terrible. When people meet me, they're like, you're just like you are online. I'm like, well, of course.
What else would I be?
Yeah. So the first step is just to say, like, where am I hiding is a better step than even getting to weird. Just where am I hiding? Where am I toning it down? Where am I, like, I wrote a word and then I deleted it because it was just a little too much and I was a little too scared. So notice where you're scaring yourself, and then notice where you kind of autocorrect your own thoughts into like, no, I could never get away with that. And then maybe try getting away with it. And it's going to happen by degrees. This did not happen. You don't get like, fuck yeah, pink hair, Kristen, right away. It took 6 years to get there. And who knows what'll be next, but you don't get to compare yourself against me. You just, if you have me, you can't be like, oh, you would never do that, Kristen. Because I'll be like, yes, I would. Come on now. And so you're going to get there by degrees, and you're going to keep opening and opening and opening. And you're going to keep saying the things that you think are going to go crazy or weird, or people are going to reject you for, or they're going to be like, oh God, I can't handle this. I can't do this. But you can, and they're going to love you for it. And it's going to shock you, the things that people hook onto and adore about you and throw back at you 3 years later. Like, remember that one time? And they will remember, and they will tell you exactly why they love you. And it will be not for the reason that you think, like that you write really good content twice a week. It will have nothing to do with that.
It'll be the meows.
It will be. It'll be like, fucking, like, let's start a meow t-shirt club or something. I don't know. It will always be the meows that get people.
I love that. So moving on, how can people discover what their greatest gifts are? So we've got people kind of looking at the weird thing, letting their weird thing out into public, blogging about it, mentioning it in their business. How do they move on from that to explore what their greatest gifts are and how they can use those in their business? Because again, it's kind of a different face of the same thing, but really challenging to get at.
It is. So my guess is that most people don't actually do the thing that they find the scariest, that they go for like the not scariest, but I could definitely make money at this logical choice when it comes to business. So typically, it's really interesting. Typically, you're blind to your own gifts. It took me a long time to start to be able to charge people for sitting down, telling them what to do, and then being like, no, you're lying to yourself. That's not okay. Like, it took so long because it's just what I do. If I meet a stranger and you were willing to be open to me, I will absolutely dominatrix you right then and there. Be like, okay, so what's happening? And then what? And then And so I was blind to that for a long time. And then writing, I have a writing degree. And I decided when I was 19 that could never make any money. And so I went and did teaching and other things. And and then it was still like I blogged for a year and a half before I was like, hey, you know what? I've been writing this whole time. Isn't that weird? Like, and truly, like, I don't say that to be a dick or to exaggerate, like truly blind to the gift. And so if there's something that you're like, I'm really talented at this, I should for sure make money on this. It's probably not your greatest gift, because your greatest gift is like, oh, I could never make money for that. I could never make money doing that. And that, when you kind of backward gasp, that's the beginning of finding out what it is that is your greatest gift. It will be the hardest to move toward. And you'll be like, okay, I can charge like $10, maybe.
Because everyone knows this. Everyone knows how to do that.
Right. Because you're blind to it. You're like, no, it's so simple for me that there is no way that you could possibly pay me to do this. There's just no way. I'm sorry, but nobody's going to pay for that. Everybody believes that nobody's going to pay for the thing that they do the most easily because it isn't easy for everyone else. But there's no way for you to know that. In your experience, it's easy as breathing. So that's what I call your easy as breathing talent.
Ooh, I love that.
No matter what your business is, you can start to work it into your existing business. So you don't have to abandon your whatever it is you're doing to begin your making cupcake business. But you can bake cupcakes for clients just because it's fun. And you can show your recipes and you can show it off on Instagram. And you can like research different kinds of buttercream and tell us the history of caramel or whatever it is that gets you off, that your caramel meows. I don't know, but go exploring with us and show us what it is that comes easily to you and what it is that fascinates you, and tell us what it is that's like, oh, this is so scary, I can't possibly do this. And then turn toward it and walk in its direction instead of pretending that it's not there and you don't see it.
Now, is this something you think people can find out on their own, or do they really need I hate to use the word coach, a coach or another person to help them figure it out? Can you dig deep into your brain and come up with the stuff?
I think you can, actually. I think you can't do it by yourself. You will need another human. I don't know that you need another coach. At the early phases, if you interview the 10 people closest to you just via email, like, what is it that you feel when you're around me? And what do you think it is that I do easily? And if you were going to give me $100,000 to do something that I do so easily, what would it be? Those kinds of questions that will reveal things that are like, oh, really? That's what you, okay. You'll see patterns. You'll see the way that you make people feel is pretty consistent. People tell me that when they're in my presence, they feel like they have a big sister who's like, go, do the thing. Damn it, do the thing. Which is pretty consistent with who I am. So asking people, and it's really vulnerable to ask, and you're really scared of the answers, but it's totally worth doing. And they'll all point out things that you don't think anyone sees or anyone values, and that you think cannot be involved in your business, but they can. And they're actually vital assets to it.
Excellent. I think that's really, really good advice to ask people that are close to you, because, they know you, they know what you're doing, they know how you're thinking, not thinking, but, they know how you're reacting and what you do, and they can see you doing your thing in ways that you can't. So that's fantastic advice.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to get an objective view of yourself.
Yes.
in the world, which is why you have other people to help.
That's why we're not alone. Everyone on their own planet.
And thank God for that.
Yes.
So in this case, especially for easiest breathing talents, a good indicator for yourself as you're delving deep is, what do you think it is that you just can't be paid for because it's too easy? And then what is it that other people say you do really well? And there will generally be a consensus that will shock you.
I love that. So how did you go through the process of finding your thing? Because, of course, as you said, it took you some time to figure out that you could be paid for what you were doing.
Sure. So part of it is that I've always said I wanted to be a teacher since I was 4. And then I lost the thread of that. And then I have a degree in English and I lost the thread of that. So there are these really strong instincts that I think people have, and that somewhere deep down, like, yes, you always wanted to be a biologist and now you are a nail technician. Okay. Perhaps you lost a thread somewhere and you can always go and pick it back up. It's never too late. Or you got kind of pulled under by the adultopus, which is like you had 3 kids and you have laundry and you just don't have time for that bullshit, whatever it is what you tell yourself. Where is it that you can begin to see that if you had an extra 20 minutes a day, you would spend it doing X, Y, or Z? Because I started writing just because I needed to write. I mean, I wrote a poem every day in college, not as part of a challenge or as part of a blah, blah, whatever. It was just an extra thing. Just hundreds of shitty poems that I would write because I had to, not because it was part of any curriculum anywhere. And so the discipline of writing it's just built into me. I just write, not every day. I don't want to act like I write every day. I write 4 or 5 days a week now.
Oh, that's good.
Because weekends. I like weekends.
Do you know, I think weekends are really, really important to rest your brain and do something completely different. And it surprises me how few people actually take weekends off.
So my future friend, he's not actually my friend, but one day he will be. My future friend, Rob Bell, refers to the Sabbath or your day off as your cathedral of time. That it becomes something else over time. And that it builds into something really amazing that you couldn't possibly have imagined over the course of a decade, of what did you do with your spare time? And hopefully it wasn't just Netflix, but there was some other thing that you pursued that became something else that had a life of its own because you made space for it.
I love that. So, Kristen, how do you work with women entrepreneurs and help them figure out what their thing is and what their greatest gifts are?
The first thing is to say, I ask them about their goals and what they would like to have. And typically not financial goals. Those aren't very interesting to me. I'm interested in who would you like to be in 2 years? And what would you like to be doing and how would you like to have your time filled? And then who are your clients? And most people don't know, because most people think their clients are someone who is not just like them. And let me tell you a secret, your clients are just like you.
Yes.
They're just exactly the same as you. They share your weird. We are wired to like each other's weird. And so then I just say, okay, well, based on that information that you want to be doing this and you want these people, these are the gaps that I see in what you're presenting to the world, especially on your website and online, and the way that you're marketing and the way that you're talking to people. Because there are typically gaps. And the closer we can get to full alignment between who you are online and who you are offline, the more successful your business is going to be and the happier you're going to be in your business, which to me is way more important than quote unquote successful.
Excellent. So what kind of format do you use to work with people? Because it seems like you've got kind of one big coaching package that you offer people.
Sure. So I send a questionnaire for dominatrixing, and then we go rogue. I make a list of, it's highly intuitive for me. I'm a little bit psychic in terms of this is the most important thing. This is the second most important thing. Okay, we're going to address all of these things. And by the end of each call, you have a list of these are the 15 things you're going to do before you talk to me again. If you don't, and don't get on the phone with me if you haven't done these things, because then you're just wasting everyone's time.
I absolutely love that. I think that's really, really good to hold people accountable at that level. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no, I don't want to get on the phone with you if you haven't done any of the things. Then I'm just like, well, we can't add more things to your list of 15 things. That's overwhelming.
Yes.
And you haven't done the things that we've agreed you should do. So you should go and do them now. Like it, you know? And so part of it is too, that one of the great struggles of being an entrepreneur is that there's no one to hold you accountable and to be like, hey, you're waking up at 10:15 and you're doing what now? And how much Hulu have you watched today? Okay. And so I don't ask about any of your bad habits. I'm just like, these are your priorities. These are your next 10 things that need to happen. If these don't happen, your business is probably going to suffer in a way that it's been suffering when you came to me. So no shame, no guilt, but just you said these things hurt and they're going to keep hurting if you don't do these things kind of as a start or as a beginning.
Excellent. I love that. So, Kristen, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women entrepreneurs who inspire you, who have helped you on your journey?
Yes and no. So I had a couple of really big ones, and I am still kind of shaking off the ways that has influenced who I am. And so I would rather not say who my most recent mentors were.
Good. Okay.
But I can tell you that it is incredibly seductive to see someone who is killing it and making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to work very closely with them and to not take on some aspect of their voice or their way of doing things. And so it isn't that I got bad advice. I made more money than I ever made when I was working with her. But it didn't resonate way deep down in my heart because my priorities are with feels and with having enough time and energy. And then money is my very last thing that comes into play. And so that just didn't line up exactly right. So I'm currently in the market for a mentor is the honest answer.
Oh, I love that. And thank you so much for being honest. It's funny because earlier today I interviewed Kat Laterzo. And she was talking about a point in her business where business mentoring totally took her off track with her business and just took her off what her heart was saying for her to do. So I love the fact that you've been open and honest with that and said, it wasn't quite aligned with your goals.
Yeah, that it taught me a lot of things about what I don't want, and not in a bad way. It was a lovely experience when it happened, and I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't. But just like, wow, that's not at all where I want to go. Isn't it crazy that I thought I wanted to go there, and now no. So we need to turn around and take a different road. I call it the kinfolk road. The Kinfolk magazine is this sort of perfection porn. And I'm just not into perfection porn. I'm not into looking glossy or prestige-y or perfect online or off. But those are the people that are the most likely to seduce you with like, come to me and I will show you my ways and it will make you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it did is the thing. Like, yes, I made way more money than I've ever made. And it didn't matter at all because it was disconnected from the parts of me that are the most feeling and tender and loving and gifted in this world.
Thank you for sharing that. I think so many times we can just get totally caught up in the romance of, other online entrepreneurs that we just think they're amazing because, they're doing such great stuff and we admire them and we want to work with them because we want to be like them. But of course, their wants and dreams are different from ours and their priorities are different from ours. And it's not always a good alignment.
It isn't. And sometimes it's there to teach you a lesson. It's there to say like, oh, I did that. I've had the 6-figure launch. Okay, cool. I've done that. I know how that feels on the other side. And maybe it's not exactly what I wanted. I will say that in the market for a mentor, I am much more aware of that there are these 3 aspects of wealth, like time and money and energy. And I value time way more than the other 2. Energy is the one that sort of lags for me. Money is like, I could take it or leave it. And so I need a mentor that's more like time-based and that's more, that's getting more alive every day. That it isn't just, I'm doing the same thing. And I guess that's enough about that. But just looking so that when you're looking outward, that you aren't being drawn in by someone who's like leading with the money foot, and then you don't actually care about money. And so it's not going to be a good fit from the beginning because you got all seduced. But really what you want is to be more alive and take travel adventures and be a little bit crazy and a little bit silly and a little bit vulnerable and make it up as you go along, which is That's what I want, and I don't have a mentor for that currently.
Well, if anyone's listening, if you can think of someone, please let us know.
I will tell you that if Elizabeth Gilbert would just fucking show up at my door and be my mentor, I would fucking done.
All right,
deal.
well, that's a good starting place.
There you go. Like, I will take Big Magic, and I'm buying Big Magic for everyone I know. I'm like, here, this is obnoxious. Just read it. Just read this now. Big Magic, go.
Oh, I haven't read it yet. It's been on my list, but I haven't had time to.
It's the best book I've read in a decade. I shit you not. Like, I have an English degree, people. Go and buy it. You don't have to hire me. That's fine. But go buy Big Magic. Give Elizabeth Gilbert your dollars, please.
Excellent. Okay, we're adding that to the show notes.
Just go do it. It's so good.
All right. Great advice. So, Kristen, where can people find you online? Your website? What social media sites do you hang out on?
Sure. So I am at brandcampblog.com, BRANDCAMP blog.com. I am KKALP on Instagram and Pinterest. Mostly I'm on Instagram playing. Mm-hmm. And then on Facebook, I'm facebook.com/brandcamp.
Excellent. Now, how do you think you let your uniqueness shine out on social media? What are some of the things that you do that you feel really, really represents who you are and what you're like on social media?
So first I have pink hair, which is kind of an obvious one. And I legit maintain that. So it wasn't like just for a photo shoot or something.
I dyed my hair pink and then I went back to brown.
Right. Like, I'm just a mousy brunette now. Like, no. On social media, on Facebook, I tend to share what I've written or what I'm finding the most interesting, even if it has nothing to do with business. Mm-hmm. And on Instagram, I share my life. And so it's like, this is my dog on my not perfect couch in my not perfect house, being a whiny brat because she wants to go out and I am working currently. And yesterday I did a shoot, just a love story kind of a shoot with my partner and one of my clients. And we played with Holly Powder. And so there's me and my partner and I'm just me, and I share my life, and I share it in a way that isn't styled and that isn't like I took 82 shots of this to make sure that these chopsticks looked perfect before I'm just showing it as it is.
Good. I like that because I kind of do the same thing with Instagram, and I feel like I always have to explain to people, well, I'm on Instagram, but I kind of use it for more personal stuff rather than business stuff because it's just, where I went for a walk, what I'm doing here, what I'm doing there. But I don't do like the business thing on Instagram. Instagram really is like what my life is and what's going on. So,
yeah, I'm occasionally business, but it feels a little bit sacred for me. Instagram is where you can decide if you like me or not. Like if you're annoyed by me on Instagram, you're going to hate the rest of me.
Instagram is the social media filter.
Because I'm sweet and silly, and I'm like, look, I got my new rainbow dress. Isn't it amazing? And so if you find that annoying, then I don't know what to tell you. We're not going to get along.
I love that. And I love the concept that we need to really, really let our weird out so that people can decide, and not try to be appealing to everyone because then you end up just being boring.
Yeah, I tell people that I'm human cilantro. So cilantro has a gene or activates a gene that you either kind of love it or it tastes like soap. And there's really no in between. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage you to be human cilantro, to get the people, because it'll magnetize people to you and it'll really push people away. But they'll be pushed so far away that they aren't like sort of hanging around in your inbox and judging everything that you do and on your list and sort of vaguely disinterested. Like they'll just go away. They'll just unsubscribe. Your life will be better. I promise.
Yes. And it'll make more room on your list for people who really do love what you do.
Yeah, I would rather have a list of 1,000 people who adore me than 100,000 people who are like,
she's okay. I could take her a little.
Yeah, right. No, like I want to be taken.
You want to be the cilantro that people love.
Yes.
So you also have a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. That's What She Said is my podcast based on the joke of the same name. And I do typically under 15-minute looks at different aspects of being in business and of being weird and of being true to yourself over the course of being an entrepreneur, which is not always easy. With the occasional interview, and season 1 just wrapped, season 2 is just starting. So I'm off playing and doing that. And I take great joy in that, except for the part where my dog barks at inopportune moments for audio. But
oh well.
So it's just that's what she said, and that's what I do. And if I could, my book, Go Your Own Way, Free Yourself from Business as Usual, is totally free when you join the Fuck Yeah Club, which is just at the bottom of my website at brandcampblog.com.
Excellent. Okay, we'll include a list to that in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I rambled, but hopefully
no, you didn't. It was great stuff.
All right, cool. I like it.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/123 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's ready, 2, bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.